Welcome to the Momship Mastery podcast, the ultimate destination for moms seeking balance, connection, and growth in their journey through motherhood. I'm your host, master's level therapist and life coach, Andrea Baker. Here at the Momship Mastery, we believe that motherhood is a purposeful journey filled with discoveries, challenges, and countless opportunities, from self-care strategies to relationship building, from spiritual growth to parenting insights. I've got you covered. So, if you're ready to embark on this journey with us, hit that subscribe button and let's explore the world of motherhood, relationships, and growth together. Remember, you're not alone on this journey, and we're here to support you every step of the way. All right, so Tanya, thank you for coming on the Momship Mastery podcast today. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. I loved listening to your gratitude episode. If your listeners haven't listened to that, they really get a flavor of you.
Well, I want you to give my listeners a chance to kind of get to know you. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from.
So I'm Tanya Gioia. I'm in the great state of Colorado, which I absolutely adore. I am raising two teenage boys. What I do is I'm an addiction relationship coach. So I work with the people who are supporting the loved ones who are struggling with addiction. So I'm the other side of addiction. Because people will say to me, well, what are you in recovery for? I am in recovery. It is just not the traditional substance abuse, pornography, work addiction, maybe work addiction, but it is, I get caught up in supporting other people so much that I forget to live my own life. And it can happen between you and a spouse, you and a child, you and a parent, anybody, to the point where it becomes my job to make sure that you are happy. And if you are not happy, then I'm not happy. So then I have to fix that. So then I start doing unhelpful help. And I define unhelpful help as something that you can do for yourself. And we all know that with kids, that at different stages, we need to let them loose to do things for themselves, or something that you don't want done in the first place. Like when my 16-year-old says, Mom, I've got basketball games. I really didn't want to help your friend out with bucking hay this season. I've got things that I need to go do, even though it would make him money, even though it would put it in his bank account for gas money and all those other things when he's in school. I think it's a good thing, but it's help that he didn't want. And he's of the age, he'll be almost 17, that he could make decisions for himself. Should have asked him, right? He can verbalize it. Yeah. So I work specifically with women, and we work specifically on who are you? What do you want? What do you like? And what is it that is a positive way to support someone who is dealing with addiction, rather than all the things that I did, nagging, complaining, yelling, unfortunately getting physical, shooting guns off in the backyard, which I don't recommend to anybody. But folks who are supporting people who are, in a way, caregivers, can look crazier than the person who is struggling with addiction, because our whole life is tied up with making this look okay. And sometimes we need to let it be what it is.
Tell me about that. How do we get to that point of feeling like it's our job to make it look okay?
Some of it is what we were modeled as children. What did your parents model for you? It was interesting that my father had some drinks in the household. He'd have a couple things. Both my grandparents, both my grandfathers were Southern Baptist preachers as like a third career in their life. So when they came, everything got hid. We didn't tell anybody. It was don't tell. Right. So instead of authenticity, you begin to paint this picture in a home where I had a girlfriend who they were driving her husband to weekend jail because he had a DUI. He turns around and looks at the children who were young at the time, let's say 5 and 8, and says, we don't tell people Daddy is going to jail. We tell them that I am going down to visit my parents for the weekend. So you begin to weave together this lifestyle that says we look like the magazine, but that's not really what's going on in the household. The next step of that is, for kids, they can't have friends over because they don't know what the emotional temperament of the household is going to be. So we're learning it really, really young. In fact, there's a joke that a person, Jeff Van Vonderen, who is an interventionist who does some really great work in the Christian arena around this, he says, when we get ready to have guests over, we feel like we need to paint this and clean up the house and run around and make sure everything looks okay. What do we actually do with this stuff? Well, because we're ashamed of how we're living on the day to day, we want to make it look even prettier. Yes, we're really talking about shame here. People can't see us as we really are. So he says, if you really want to clean your house where you can do it quickly and nobody can say anything about it, put everything in the master bathroom in the shower. Because even if somebody looks behind the shower curtain, they can't come back out and say it to the dinner table.
Exactly.
Well, it looks like you just stuffed all your dirty clothes, all your dirty dishes and everything in the master bathroom, because that would bring shame on them. So you're just recreating the circle and you had just mentioned that your mom was staying with you in Kuwait. She didn't travel that far to come and see whether you had dirty dishes in the sink or not. Yeah. So we're not only moving from shame, but we're also moving into this performance love. And that's what, when we follow Christ, and I don't know if all your listeners do, but as I follow Christ, I'll put it in the I context. What he said is, the greatest of these is love. Of all these commandments is love. And it is not about loving me for my performance. And I know in raising kids, we walk that tightrope of, yes, I need to teach them. I need to instill some things in them. I need to love them no matter what.
Yep. Instilling that early is so key. It's so key, that no matter what piece, because shame does come up, right? And we don't even have language all the time to identify that is what we're feeling, especially when we are in relationship or have people in our lives that are in recovery or are addicted to anything. It's like, you don't want to tell people, you don't want them to really know what's happening. You don't want to even explore how that's affecting you. And then it creates this dynamic that doesn't give them room to explore what they're feeling, and explore how to navigate what this could look like otherwise, right? All we can see is where we are, and we're not really sure of how to frame it in a different way, or how to even have hope for something else.
Well, and bring me back to hope, because I've got some things. What's happening, and I have mothers reaching out to me all the time, is they're saying, they've got a spouse who is dealing with a lot of pain, and maybe they're using substance, maybe they're just not showing up for things, they're putting work in front of everything else, or there's a pornography going on, or, the latest thing I'm sure everybody's dealing with is that phone addiction, that they're sitting down at the table and they're not turning anything off. They're still wearing headphones.
Listening to something else. Yeah.
So for whatever reason, for whatever pain, that spouse has checked out. They're not available to them. So the mom reaches out to me and says, okay, my kids are seeing this. This is not how I want them to behave. I cannot control the other adult, right? As a therapist, you would say, you don't get to control another adult, but I do need to teach my children. So in the scenarios I gave you before, when the person going to jail is saying, but we don't tell anybody, what are we teaching them? We're teaching them the lie. When they're saying to the child, I was not under the influence, or I was not drunk last night. You didn't see that. That didn't happen. The child is learning to not trust themselves because they saw what they saw. But then the adult is telling them something different. They want to believe and trust the adult. I mean, we know that even in abuse situations, they want to believe and trust the adult so much. Then what she often will do is start running interference. So, and you can talk about that even more. They'll run that triangulation so that the child really doesn't have a relationship with the other parent. They have a relationship through the parent to the other parent. And again, you've got this person saying, okay, I will make my family look like it's supposed to look,
Mm-hmm.
even if it kills me. I will give up going to the doctor. I will give up having a life of my own. I will live this life for all the other people. So let's bring this back to a little theological understanding. Jesus said,
Mm-hmm.
you must lose your life to gain it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean you give up your life for other people who are capable of living their lives. If you're in a battle like that, we are in a spiritual battle, but by giving up my life, I am not modeling for my children a key. What did Jesus say? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, right? And then the second commandment that he bundled all 10 into was love your neighbor as yourself. And as a therapist, Andrea, I'm sure you find this. People forget I'm supposed to love myself
too. We
So
go
if
straight to
that
the neighbor,
mom,
right?
yeah,
Straight
if that
into.
mom is like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I've got to protect my kids, and I'm not saying don't protect your kids. If there is a threatening situation, you are responsible for protecting your kids.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are making everything okay, making sure everything looks right, and giving up everything of yourself so that you're not displaying how to love yourself, guess what your kids are going to do as they grow up?
Yep. Same. It's a cycle and
They're gonna,
patterns, right? We
yeah.
learn it. It's learned behavior. And that's how we learn to cope and we learn to understand our world. I call it a world map. It's like our map, it becomes our map of the world and how we go from this place to that place. Anytime we experience something, that becomes our map and shows us how to get from point A to point Z. So if it says that, by fiddling the truth or covering up what really happened, that's how we get from here to here, then that's what that's how you discover your roadmap. And I tell people that all the time. This brings a really important question about, does the whole family need treatment after someone is sober or after someone in the family is sober? Or do you feel that person's recovery or that family member's recovery alone will reset the dynamics? And I have my answer. I just would like to know, what do you, as a recovery expert, what are your thoughts?
Thank you for the question. That is the platform that I talk on all the time, is the person who is dealing with the addiction did not come from nowhere. They learned how to cope. And I think most of us can agree that an addiction is a coping mechanism. It is the solution. I mean, people wouldn't use drugs if they didn't work. People wouldn't use alcohol if they didn't work. You get to a topping off point to where the consistency in that has to be there to maintain normal. And then it begins to backslide down into degeneration. But people start because it works. It makes me friendly at parties. It makes me outgoing. It gives me the opportunity to what I think is really connect with another person.
Connected. Yep.
In a way than we've ever been, but it is not filling our heart, mind, and soul. It's causing us to actually disconnect from reality. So those are just two examples. And then pornography is another one. My father would say, hey, it used to be behind a counter in a drugstore in a brown paper wrapper. You really had to work to get a hold of it. Now you don't. And so we're seeing generations of especially young men, but women make up 33%. So we're seeing more and more of, when you are connecting in a way with a picture like pornography brings to you, you're not actually having a relationship with a human, because that picture does whatever your imagination says. So this whole disconnection is going on. So the person dealing with the addiction is dealing with some kind of pain. They're using the addiction as a solution. The pain is there for them, and it generates in the family. Say that person works on their own recovery, but nobody else in the family works on their recovery. Now I don't have a job anymore. Who am I? I'm not here to take care of you. I don't get to make all the decisions. You're not checked out anymore. Now I have to deal with, hopefully, what's coming to be a full functioning adult. Maybe I don't like that. Maybe that's not the person that I thought that I married.
Codependent relationship now.
Codependent, and I like bringing this up, co-addict. So in my situation with my husband, I can feel it come over me like I want to drink you in. I need to get next to you. I need something from you. And here's the thing that people don't think about with addiction is folks with addiction are great problem solvers because they will get what they need because they believe their life depends on it. When your life depends on it, you will make it happen, right? So to solve my problem, if I need you to pay attention to me, if I'm feeling this disconnected, if I need this love connection, I am going to go to you, hopefully in a loving way to start with. But if you won't give me that, just like your kiddo, think about a toddler, you won't give them the stuffy or the lollipop or whatever they want. They may come and say, mommy, please, mommy, please, mommy, please. Then it's going to heighten to screaming, and then it's going to heighten to physical, right? And it's going to keep heightening and heightening and heightening. Or for those who go the other way, it'll go down, down, down. They'll just shut off and go somewhere like that. Well, I'm a heightener. So I'm going to keep coming at him until I get a response. Because just like a child, I would rather have a response. I would rather have some connection than to have no connection. And that gets me in a lot of trouble. So in answer to your question, the person who we've identified as the person struggling with addiction, probably the rest of the family is struggling with some things too, because they can't be non-affected and be in the family unit. Say they, in the classic model, they run off and get treatment, right? And then you put them back in the family model.
System.
Yeah, in the same family model without any help, or maybe the 1 week up at the treatment center or something like that. They have two choices. Conform back to the family model, which probably means they go back to an addiction. Maybe they switch, right, to one that's not as open, and or leave.
Yeah, in marriage and family therapy, we call that returning back to homeostasis. So homeostasis is the family's normal way of functioning, right? Whether it's dysfunctional or not, this is how they're able to function. This is what's normal to them. And then when you take the, like you said, identified person or the problem, quote unquote, out of that system and then quote unquote fix it or define it, the family doesn't know how to circulate. It doesn't know how to run. So their job and their goal is to get the family back to its state of homeostasis. It's trying to get it back to how we normally function. And like you said, there's one or two choices. Either the whole system has to change or they have to leave, right? They either go back.
So let me give you a real visual. Okay. So if you have trash in your house, you have a place that you put it, right? And then you take it out and you dump it and you relieve the trash. So think about this. All of my problems, because we've got a delusional thinking piece, we've got a dysfunctional thinking piece. All of my problems, take all of my problems. The rent's not getting paid. The kids are acting out. Things aren't going well in school. I don't feel fulfilled. I feel disconnected. I can put all of my problems, think about the identified person as the trash can. I can put all of my problems over there and say, okay, if the trash gets taken out, if they go in the classic model to treatment and they get the treatment they need and they come back, then everything's okay, right? It's not. It's not okay because you have made this your dumping ground and have not looked back at yourself. When you're doing, I'm pointing if you're not seeing the video. When you're pointing at somebody, you're pointing 3 back at you. Love your neighbor as yourself, taking care of yourself. And then you expect that spouse to come home and go, woo, woo, I got it all together. So now I'm going to take the finances. I'm going to fix the kids. I'm going to show up at work. I'm going to do this. Man, you are in for a real surprise because tell us from your experience, Andrea, when that person does come back.
They're hoping to have some help, right? They're hoping to have a place to land. And if you're coming at them, like expecting them to perform now, since they're fixed or whatever, then they go back into a crisis, right? They go back into this spiraling place of unable to function, unable to think, unable to grasp from the tools that they've been able to develop in treatment and wherever they were. And now we're back in this, like you said, this same system of circular functionality where they're just continuing to go through this process. And I'm just looking at how it affects the whole family and how each person has to play a role. I tell people all the time, I advocate for whole families to come into treatment, especially when they try to point fingers at one person. I'm like, well, let's all talk about it. Let's see. Because like you said, this is telling us that there's a problem somewhere. This is telling us that there's hurt and there's pain somewhere, and it's probably in all of them, but this is showing, this is the thing that is showing, right? And I always try to shed light on that because sometimes they don't see it. Other times they don't want to see it. So it's really just one, shedding light on it, and then giving them the tools and the ability to process through that together. Because if they process through it together, they can rebuild together, and that way they can sustain it together. But if it's only one person doing the work, if it's only one person that's actively trying to get better or change things, then that's not a sustainable change.
And in my own story, when my husband did decide to let go of the drugs and alcohol because it had degenerated to the point of almost non-functioning, an alarm went off on me. I'd been in Al-Anon for a little while, a more traditional program. So an alarm went off on me is, I've got to be ready. I've got to be ready. And I didn't know at that time what I needed to be ready for, but I knew I needed to be ready. I knew there needed to be a shift. There's part of me that said, look, I've been running the whole show for the last 10 years and doing all of this, and I'm just tired and I want to hand it over. Well, for somebody who had been using for as long as my husband had, so if people don't know, emotionally you get stuck in when your heavy use date started, and that could be phone, that could be all those other things. So say you're stuck in a 13-year-old mindset and emotions, so you probably really hadn't had a whole lot of real emotions for a while. Then I've got this 33-year-old coming back, and I'm looking at him and I want to hand him 33-year-old responsibilities.
He can
but
only
he's not
hold.
there. He can only hold so much.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's continuing to hold down a job. And this is what other people don't think about is most people who have addiction, 70% are holding down a job. They're not
functional.
That's why we get so confused.
Addiction.
Look like people on the street. They don't look like the people we portray in the movies. They're the people sitting next to you in the pew. They're the people at the next table over. You have no idea. So when the other family members sense this change, like you said, they want to go back to homeostasis, not because they liked it, but because it was familiar. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. So not only do I want to, I don't have a dumping ground anymore, so I can't blame him and shove all the problems off on him, but I also can't hand him all the responsibilities. Right. I also can't say that. And here's the part that I really help women with is we have this made up dream. This Hollywood dream, okay? And Jerry Maguire is part of it. If you're old enough to see, remember that movie where he comes in and he's like, "You complete me," and she's like, "You had me at hello," and we all go. That is so far from the truth. What she has been doing is her whole world has become that family and making it look like the magazine. Otherwise, you were still with the rest of us and you're dumping all your dirty clothes and dishes in the master bathroom shower and going, okay, they can't really tell me they looked in there. We're all going to be okay. Right. So when we get back to the Jerry Maguire, it isn't you complete me. It is, for those of us with a faith, it is God who transforms and completes me. And then I can share that with you and go back and forth. So the woman in the family has often been trying to hold it together for God. And God has been saying, daughter, you're getting in my way. I need him to be able to deal with the natural consequences. I need him to see these things. Absolutely. So when he comes back supposedly fixed, she's like, okay, God, thank you. Thank you. Now we'll just move forward with this dream of you complete me, because she's let go of all her community. She doesn't know who she is anymore. I was just working with a client. She's like, you know what? I used to get out and ride my motorcycle all the time. It's a beautiful day. Why don't I go out and ride my motorcycle? Because she was caught up in what they were doing. If he didn't ride his motorcycle, then I shouldn't ride my motorcycle. And so I've got, what do you like? That's hard. What's important for you? So like you said, this is a family systems based issue. We can't just walk away from the other person and say, okay, got this. Now, my husband will still say it to me. He's like, do you want to work my program for me? So that's
Ooh,
AA language
yes, it
that says
is. Mm-hmm.
back off.
Off and let them.
You guess why he says that to me? Snap.
Yeah.
Can you guess why he says that to me? It's deeper than you think.
Why?
Because I am acting like the co-addict. I'm going, I
Mm-hmm.
need from you and I need you to fulfill in me and I need you to do these things for me so
Mm-hmm.
that I can be happy. And that's not his
That's
responsibility.
right.
And that's why I put it as oftentimes it can be a co-addiction. It doesn't have to be, but it
Mm-hmm.
can be this
Yeah.
co-addiction because when we look at dependence, codependence, and then interdependence,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we bring
Mm-hmm.
it back to our children. Our children are dependent on us.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we want them that they need from us. We
Yes.
don't want them to become in the sense that they can't function without us.
Mm-hmm.
We do want them to become
Interdependent. Yeah.
interdependent.
Yeah.
And then there's the other one. This is one that I'm beginning to love more and more, prodependent.
Hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
know when I'm able to give help and I know when I need to back off and
Mm-hmm.
rely on what I've got. And I can be interdependent and I can sometimes be dependent because we
Mm-hmm.
know when there are stages in our life, maybe it's illness, maybe it's pregnancy, maybe it's, I've got a parent I need to take care of, that
Mm-hmm.
I do need to be dependent on you for
I
something.
mean,
So
yeah.
in the recovery world, codependence has become kind of an ugly term. We're
Mm-hmm.
changing our language to more positives, more person positive language. So I like the prodependent of I have boundaries. I
Mm-hmm.
do know how to love myself. And I also can go from to independent to interdependent
Mm-hmm.
as the circumstance requires. Because I,
Yeah.
I have a strong enough base in
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Yeah. So, what are you telling your clients what is the things that they need to do first if they are either in a relationship with an addict or if they came from a childhood with addiction? What is it that they need to do to function well in that relationship?
Everybody comes different, just like for
Mm-hmm.
therapy, everybody comes different. One of the things, because I am a Christian addiction recovery,
Mm-hmm.
relationship recovery coach, I do ground
Mm-hmm.
there. So
Yeah.
we start talking about that
The
in the
foundation of
context
faith.
of
Mm-hmm.
love your neighbor as yourself. What does it mean to love yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing for you? How are you identifying your needs? Because we all have three basic needs.
Mm-hmm.
We have the need to be loved, the need to be heard, and the need to know we're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe another human can't give those to you, but because I ground in a biblical understanding, God is always there to give those to you. So the first thing we talk about is taking your eyes off the person
Mm-hmm.
with what you conceive of as the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They may still have the problem, and I
Mm-hmm.
am in no way saying that the problem is not real.
Mm-hmm.
It is real. When they're manic and running around the house and opening and closing doors at 2 a.m. in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
it's real. So we
Yeah.
will do plans around what to do about that. Take your eyes off them,
Mm-hmm.
put your eyes on you,
Mm-hmm.
and let's start getting grounded in what it is you need to do, what you need to change, and what God is calling you to.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I connected
Mm-hmm.
because God said, hey, there's some things for you and some
Mm-hmm.
opportunities for you. So
Yeah.
let's get you with somebody who can help you see them.
Yeah, I love that. That's definitely needed. This is not a race we can run by ourselves. It's also often something that we need to kind of go hand in hand with. And especially like for me, I know I grew up with the addict. My mom was an alcoholic up until I was 17. So I grew up with that. So a lot of that encompasses a sense of isolation. Like we have to make it look a certain way and not let people in. So when we're trying to heal and when we're trying to restore and do all those things, isolation is usually one of the hardest things to break, and really just trying to find people that one understand, that can be compassionate and that can have space for that healing seeing, right? Because it takes a different lens to see into the realms of addiction and what they affect and how they affect relationships and really like what the other person is dealing with. Because a lot of times, like you said, we focus on the addict. That's because that looks like the problem, but it's all problematic at this point. We all need to look at it and see our roles and how we can really what we need. Like you said, redefining our needs. And the only way we can fully do that, I believe, is through connecting back with our Heavenly Father and really just leaning into Him. And like I tell people all the time, that's always my foundation. That's where I start with anything and everything. That's where I finish. That's where I am all down the middle. So thank you for that. That's amazing.
Well, you just brought it out, recognizing that we have needs and it's okay to have needs, because growing up in this showcase family where you don't really talk about needs and you don't show anybody that you have needs, not only is there isolation, but the other thing that we will talk about is, where have you abandoned yourself?
Oh, wow.
So oftentimes I will have to abandon myself and say, what I need, I don't really need, and I can get along without it.
It's not as important as what's in front of me, because this looks like crisis, right? It always looks like crisis on the side of the addict, and it always looks like this has to be dealt with now, and this has to be dealt with in this way. So I need to abandon everything that I had and everything that I have thought about or doing or all these things, and just kind of focus on that. And that's problematic in itself. We have to undo that and unlearn that.
Well, and that may be how we got love. If I do the right dance, I get the hug. So if I bring home straight A's, they're proud of me. I'm okay. I get the hug. In Jim Carrey, he talked about his mom wasn't an addict, but she was very sick. He would do all these performances and make all these faces, make her laugh and make her smile. That's how he got connection. When we have a great comic out of it, right? We have a fantastic performer. He's had to come back to who he was. So this performance piece, when we are doing this showcase family, we are constantly performing. And then, this from the therapy world, at some point we start going, I don't know who I am versus who the performance is. So we put on the right mask. We get rewarded for putting on the right mask. And you can see this with kids. You can see this with animals. Anything that you reward will continue. And that's what I loved. We'll bring it back to your gratitude on your podcast on gratitude, was the more we focus on what we don't want, the more that's going to appear. The more that we focus on what we do want, that's going to appear. But if we put on this mask and this performance for so long, we're not even sure what we want, right? So if I want that man to complete me, but in the reality of the world that God set up, He's never able to do that. I keep asking for something that I'm never going to get, and I'm always going to feel empty, and I'm going to keep demanding, and suddenly I'm shooting guns off in the backyard. Think about that. My voice is not being heard. I need to be heard. I need to be heard. I need to be heard. So I took something really powerful to be heard. Well, I got heard. All right. Yeah, I got heard. But it didn't bring me what I needed or what I wanted. So we keep performing and performing, but nothing is happening. Right? And God says to me, you know what? I love you as much now as I loved you when you were conceived. There's nothing you can do to earn this grace. Show up here, child, and I want to love you. I am settling on Isaiah 54, which is God calling Israel back to him. But if you read it in a personal fashion, he says, I love you. I'm here for you. I have moved mountains for you. I am coming for you. I am not going to just look at the 99 and abandon you. I'm going to come looking for you. So when you've abandoned yourself, guess what? You've abandoned God, because he loves you so much. He wants you to see that you are valuable, you are worthy. And I can hear people out there, I can hear women out there screaming, but this has got to get taken care of.
To take care of the world, but not go back inward. We have to go back to home. We have to go back to him. We have to go back to that place of just solace and gratitude. The world could be doing what it's going to do, right? I've learned that sometimes it's not perfect. It's not real, right? Where we have these perfect set of circumstances that we feel, well, when this is done and when I can get this done and when I can do that, then I'll have time to do self-care. Then I'll have time to do meditation. Then I'll have time to pray in the morning. That doesn't work. right? We have to make the
No.
time. You have to know that this impacts my day so much that I have to make time for this. That's where I am now. It's like if I don't, I can tell how differently my day goes if I don't have that time to reconnect with God and to realign myself with my values and my gratitude. And because we'll get busy and get into things, and it's just like all the things that are going wrong, and you get stuck in that place. And it's like, I don't want to live this way because I feel angry all day and I feel upset and I feel like I'm triggered all day and all these things are happening. And that's not where I want to be. So realigning.
Go back to sailing your momship. When you are, so your kids, since I'm at the kind of opposite end of letting them go, your kids are watching you. And if you are doing everything angry all day long or hurt or sad or always pinning your issues over here on the other person, they're going to model that. And that's what I came to when my oldest was 13. We were really struggling. I mean, drywall was getting broken and daddy was getting called and all, just some real anger. And I thought, you know what, Tanya, you've modeled this for him. You need to shift. And that's when a lovely therapist said to me, this was extremely painful. And I hope no mothers have to hear this, but I want you to take it in like I heard it. My son was in therapy and she came to me in a private session and she said, your house is not safe enough for him to do his deep work. And talk about the sword that must have sliced through Mary's heart. She just went, she said, you have got to get safe before he can do what he needs to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Take me. So I went into therapy at that point, and guess what? The whole house shifted. The whole house shifted. I learned how to be in relationship with that child, that beloved. I didn't have him till I was 35. I desperately wanted this baby. He was just the delightful. He was the Michelin man because he was so fat and so chubby and so sweet, and then he started to grow up. I began to see how I had influence. Now you can't cure it. You can't control it and you can't change it, but I had influence
We do have
over
influence.
what
Yes,
is happening.
definitely.
It's more about my posture and my internal rather than my verbal. Because that's what those kids are picking up on.
Exactly.
So me changing that means that now that he is 19 and out of the house, we have dinner together. I can call him. He comes back for the weekends.
Yes.
We were at a point at 13 that he may not have been able to live with us had things continued like that. I changed him by doing things for me. So that's what I want all your moms to hear is, yes, you are under a huge load. Yes, God protects you and he looks after those who, there's a scripture that it's in there somewhere, you'll have to look for it, who says he looks after the lambs that are the ewes that are protecting their lambs, right? He is very concerned about women who are mothering, extremely concerned. And you can see that all throughout the Bible.
Yeah.
And he wants you to come to him with everything. Lord, my dishwasher's broken and I don't know what to do.
Seriously.
Lord, the child is screaming and I need to go sit in the bathroom for just a minute and have a mommy timeout because I'm at the end of my rope. And then when they get in those later stages, he wants you to come to him for every single bit of that because he's there he knows where you came from and who you are and that you're performing and he wants to bring you back to that authenticity of yourself. So in kind of rounding that out with the gratitude, when I stopped focusing on the child and started focusing on me, my life shifted. This child, this is a beautiful child. He can make money hand over fist. Money just comes to him, right? But he can't hold on to it. It's like a river moving downstream. So the church was doing a Dave Ramsey Jr. class and I wanted him to go. Well, he's 13. He doesn't want to go.
Right. Of course not.
So I said, okay, I will take you out to breakfast before the Sunday school class at the restaurant of your choice if you will show up. Because at this point, he's probably 180 pounds. he outweighs me. There's no more like you do with a toddler, putting him in the
Nope.
car and going,
You're
we're
going
going.
anyway.
He's
Nope.
either going of his own volition or he's not going. So I take him out to the Village Inn. I don't know if people have that, but it's a Denny's. It's a diner type restaurant, which is where he wanted to go. He wanted to eat pancakes and syrup and all that kind of stuff. I take him out there. We sit down, right? We sit down. And we've ordered, and he looks at me and he says, so what's your agenda for this breakfast? Oh my goodness. I have projected this. Wow. Every time we sit down, I have something to say, something to teach, something to admonish. I need to control the conversation. Wow. I need to, I at least I'd have enough therapy by then to recognize what was underneath what he was saying to me.
Because I think sometimes we get stuck in offense.
We just switch the whole thing and go, I have put this out there that I am controlling. I mean, talk about controlling. I was controlling everything. Wow. So I looked at him and I said, I don't have an agenda. I was so humbled. I don't have an agenda. I just want to share with you. I want to share my life with you, and I want to hear about yours. That's what changed our whole relationship. Changed our whole relationship. We continued to go out to breakfast. He continued to go to Dave Ramsey. Maybe that I've instilled some money management. I mean, he knows. It's kind of like one of those things. We all know how to do algebra. If our life depended on it, we would probably figure it out and do all the stuff. He knows. He has a solid job. He's paying his bills. He's doing all of those things, like all moms. He's doing some spending that I wish he would function, but he's 19, right? What did we do at 19?
What to expect?
But that's what I'm sharing. We talk about hope and focusing on. I needed to shift my focus to this is, I know some people would say 13 is too young, but in a lot of cultures, this is now an adult.
Right? Age of accountability.
I still have responsibility to him, but I don't really have responsibility for him as much at this age, right? So to begin to teach him how to share himself and me to share myself. Now again, he's not quite.
Exactly.
There are things that we're not going to talk about because I'm his parent, but I'm not bringing him up to the friend level yet. Even at 19, we're not, I think that's more like 25 and beyond, but you begin to establish that more of a friendship rather than a parenting role when your girlfriend breaks up with you, when things don't go right at school, when I'm feeling lonely and afraid. You can come to me because I'm not going to say, okay, we're going to talk about it this way, like this. And that's that. I'm sure you talk about it with your therapy clients.
You created that safe space, and that's the most important thing.
And that comes from, let me tell you, that comes from total. We were in drywall was being broken. We were in total chaos when this was happening, and I'd probably had 4 or 5 therapy sessions by this point. But God has a way of bringing you to that point where you can look at it and say, okay, Father, I'm not doing such a great job as a parent. And he will be there. I will guarantee it on my life that when you say, God, I can't do this. I need help. I need you to move me because I can't move myself. He will make a way. Maybe not be the way that you like. It was really hard to hear that my family was not safe for my child, but I knew it was the change agent you needed. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. It's so many nuggets in this episode that I know are going to be helpful. I'm probably going to have you back, but this has been amazing.
I want you to come to the Sober on Purpose podcast. So I run a podcast too called Sober on Purpose, and y'all can find that out there. So it is really for the other side of addiction. It is for the family. So Sober on Purpose is really about purpose, right? We have to be emotionally sober to find our purpose. And I'd love to have you share a lot of your stuff on there.
I will make sure, but let our audience know how to find you. I know you said Sober on Purpose. Let us know what that is on Instagram and how their website. I'll have your link to your everything in the show notes, but let them know.
Okay. So Sober on Purpose is a podcast. It's the easiest one to remember. My website is Tanya Gioia, but Gioia is spelled Gioia. So TanyaGioia.com. Addiction Connection Recovery is Instagram, YouTube, all those other places. There's a lot of freebies on the website. So one of the ones that we really enjoy giving to people, and I'll put it in your show note links too, is prayers for my husband. So it's 30-second powerful prayers for your husband. All they take is you looking at your screen, saying a little prayer, and going on. You could do it at a stoplight while you're driving your car, right? So that I really invite you to participate in that. We send out 5 days of those. You keep using those over and over. You could go into the bigger program. And then I also run the Grace and Recovery Framework, which has a group process to it and group meetings. If you are struggling with addiction, I highly recommend that you do something. Whether it is get on an online Al-Anon group, go to a Celebrate Recovery group, go to Thrive Family Resources, do something, and give it a couple sessions. Once you do that, you'll begin to get a mind frame where you can begin to make other choices. This is a step by step. You didn't get here overnight. You're not getting out overnight. And that's the thing. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of joy. Definitely. There's a lot of things. So we need to do another episode on when I became thankful for marrying somebody that had such a high level addiction. Because it was a big switch. Done.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this one. I'm definitely going to have you back, and I'll be over there on your side soon. So I appreciate you, Tanya, and I hope you enjoyed this time together. And
this was so fun.
That's all for today, and I hope that you're feeling inspired to navigate your shifts with grace and authenticity. If you enjoyed this episode, I want you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a mom who may just need a little support and encouragement. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. We are on Instagram and Facebook at Momship Mastery, and those links are also in the show notes. Before we go, here's my little reminder. You are an incredible mom, and you have the power to nurture your inner well-being and create meaningful connections and relationships. Embrace the journey, cherish the moments, and continue to thrive in your momship journey. Until next time.